103.1 FM. Keep it locked.
Chosen generation, we've been called for to show His excellence. Hey, all I require for life, God has given me, and I know who I am.
Good evening to all of our listeners, both by radio or those who are streaming in the virtual platform. This is the man Trevor T with you this evening. It's 5 p.m. in the evening on Wednesday, the 19th of October. And on Wednesday evening at this time, we have an excellent program that's called Leadership Plus with Reverend John Lewis. And it's time for the impartation of knowledge. Reverend Lewis is a leadership coach, a mentor, a teacher, counselor. And this evening, he's going to share with us, as he's been doing for the last couple of Wednesdays, on the 15 invaluable laws of growth. So we want to ask you to please invite your husband or your wife, friend, or someone. Tell them to join now the program. Tune in, because knowledge is going to be dispensed. Free knowledge, I should say. You don't have to pay for it. This is expensive information. Knowledge is not cheap, it's costly. But we are going to be sharing with you this evening so that we can empower you to be all you have been created and God has anointed you to be, so you could fulfill your purpose and your destiny. So we're going to invite Reverend Lewis to the program shortly, and prepare, just share the link with someone and let them know that Leadership Plus is on at this time.
I know who I am. Say, I'm walking in power. I walk in miracles. I live a life of favor. So I know who I am. Everybody shout.
So let me say good evening to you, Reverend Lewis, and welcome to Leadership Plus. It's my joy to have you this evening, and greet the audience and let them know what you're going to be sharing with us this evening.
Thank you, Brother Trevor T. It's always good to be with you. And of course, to share one of the laws of invaluable growth. We are on Law 4 in a text part of the John Maxwell program, the 15 invaluable laws of growth. And so this evening, we want to look at the law of reflection, the law of reflection. And so that will be our focus this evening. And the caption under this law is learning to pause allows growth to catch up with you. Learning to pause allows growth to catch up with you. So we want to discuss the power of pausing. I thought of one analogy, Trevor, when I was preparing for this time together with you.
Mm-hmm.
If we keep our feet at the gas pedal all the time, we will surely have an accident.
An accident, yeah.
Yes. We can't be pressing gas all the time. In the same way, we need to take the brakes up and make sure that we have control of the vehicle that we are driving around. And so in the same way, we have to take the pause and pausing is a time for reflection.
Yes, yes.
And the truth of the matter is, if there is not reflection in what we hear and what we are seeking to learn, learning doesn't really take place.
Mm-hmm.
It's only as we reflect, as we pause, then we get great appreciation for what is being said to us. So learning to pause allows growth to catch up with you.
You're correct. You know, the
Mhm.
scripture tells us that we should, in the book of Psalms, it says Selah, which means to
Mhm.
pause
Yes.
and meditate. And I think the author of those Psalms, they found a deep secret with God. You're right. If you keep going at life full voltage, as we would say, you're gonna end up either shipwreck or burnt out, or you will crash somewhere along the way. And
Yes.
that is why I think this topic is so important, because not many of us take time to reflect. You know, we've went to school, we learned, we know the topic, we know the issues, we think we have all the answers, so we just keep going full speed ahead. You know, but
Mhm.
I think that's why the old forefathers put into the labor laws that you're entitled to time off, you know, vacation. But there are some people who work years and years and never take a vacation.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
I open to you now to really get down into the meat of this whole matter of reflection, because a lot of times reflection, we relate it to looking at yourself in the mirror, you know, but this is not what this is talking about at all. This is something
Of
quite
course.
different.
Right. I'd like to bounce off on your reference to burnout, because lack of taking the pause and reflection can lead us to burnout. And I noted some of the symptoms of burnout. From the physical aspect, you experience headaches, upset stomach, inability to sleep well.
Hmm.
Some of the emotional symptoms is, of course, depression
Mm-hmm.
due to anxiety. Um, and the spiritual impact as well is that you lose interest even in
Mm-hmm.
spiritual exercises, like your own
Mm-hmm.
prayer, your own
Right. Yeah.
devotional time, your own time of fellowship. So it tends to cause us to want to withdraw from people as well, and we become isolated.
Mm-hmm.
And those are some of the symptoms when we do not pause or withdraw. And just one of the biblical examples, when Jesus said to his disciples, we got to pull off the road, as it were,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, come apart or you will fall apart, as we would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it
Come
is
on.
really a time of reflection turns experiences into insight. So reflection turns experiences into insight.
Mm-hmm.
We have many experiences every day of our lives. The moment we leave our homes to go to our
Mm-hmm.
jobs or vocation of work, we we do not necessarily keep a record of all the experiences that we have for a typical 8-hour day. But all those experiences in getting there, um, taking the drive or the bus or whatever method we have to use to get to our destination,
Mm-hmm.
it allows us time to reflect. But Trevor, as you know, we always tend to be in the hurry and bustle,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
especially when the traffic builds up and you can't. So instead of using the what should be a downtime to pause, we get tired,
And
we get
just
upset with the traffic, we get upset with the people in front of us.
pressure
Why are
gone
they why are they not moving, moving along quickly? Who's holding up the traffic?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the truth about it is that we really can't do much about it at that time.
Yes.
Um, so I mean, just a little spot here for Hope FM. That's a good time to listen.
Listen.
Uh,
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, I listened to Pastor Beryl Blake this morning,
Yes,
and that
yes,
was such a good message
yes,
that
yes,
that
yes.
comes on. So you can use it to listen to good music, have some good, healthy music
Mhm.
in your vehicle. Unfortunately, we don't hear those in the buses,
The
and
buses.
yeah, it's
Eventually, we'll get
unfortunate.
there where the buses will be playing Hope FM all during the day.
Yes, we have to get someone to sponsor that, so that they could buy into that. But so use opportunities like when we are stalled someplace, to reflect upon that as well. So experiences of working with people, um, it is just natural and normal in a sense that we'll experience times of uncertainty, times of conflict with our coworkers. But how we come out of those meetings or discussions when we may not necessarily agree with all decisions being made, but just to reflect upon um, what was the mindset of those types of discussions. So we must reflect on the experiences that we have each day of our life. We're taking children to school, or we're um,
Mm.
getting ready for meetings,
Yes,
and it
yes, yes.
allows us and it gives us insight,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Foresight as well as insight into what we do. So
Yeah,
reflection helps us to do that.
yeah. Introspection, into looking
Mhm.
into yourself is
Yes,
important.
yes.
You mentioned that whole issue of you could be doing other things while you taking some time to reflect. And
Hmm.
I think that's one of the positive I see in this message. You could be,
Yes.
going on your way to drop the children to school. You
Hmm.
don't have to take the work with you or the problem with you or that matter that needs be resolving. You should take that time to reflect. And sometimes in that period, basically you're saying that solution to problems, answers to questions come.
Absolutely. And then another point we want to raise is everyone needs a time and place to pause.
Mm.
So during a 24-hour day, if it's an hour or less, um, but we need to carve out a particular place, so that it is set for us to do. It helps us to prepare for the day as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it is not when we necessarily come back home late from work and we basically worn and tired. We do not really have the energy, to do thorough reflection. So when we are fresh, you wake up with energy, and you in a more private, secluded space in your life, that it enables reflection and a time to pause as well. So it's a practice that we encourage to develop. Each of us can determine how we want to do that, the way and um, what we want to reflect upon, um, because it gives us perspective. It gives us perspective, and then pausing with intention expands and enriches thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not just arbitrarily sitting down and trying to figure out what's next,
Mm-hmm.
but it is intentional in what we want to muse upon, as it were, to pause and to think, to evaluate what we want to do with the time that we're using to do that, the place and time to think, um, and pausing helps us to do that. It expands and enriches our thinking. You will discover that if you're preparing and you had time to think through,
Mm-hmm.
to pause and to to really assimilate the information
Mm-hmm.
before you go in a meeting, before you involve in a project.
Mm-hmm.
The preparation for that um, helps you to do a better job,
Yeah.
especially If it's a demanding project or work experience that you're having, so better prepared you are, you're better able to respond to the situation. I mean, just some typical examples is that if you know you're going to, we know that sometimes we all have difficult assignments, whether it's a meeting that you have to discuss some challenging and difficult people or decisions you have to make regarding an enterprise. So you're not going into these situations rushed and ill prepared, but you are taking the time because it helps you to clarify as well. Poor decisions are made when we have not thought through them and clarify the implications for decision making and making tough decisions as well.
So, what do you say to the man who says, really, he may be facing something and he say, I don't have time to think. You know, I mean, we've heard that, and oftentimes that's when that happens just before a disaster. You know,
Yes,
a
yes,
disaster happened. You know? I couldn't think,
yes,
or I didn't have the time to think. You know, I didn't think about it. You know,
yes,
but you know, we could have the impression that with modernization
hmm
comes the challenge to find the space to think.
yes,
You know, what are the solutions for that? I think that maybe we may lead into the next section.
yes. We will definitely get into that as well. But just to say that we are poised and better prepared when we have reflected on and we have had time to think through the issues, the pros and the cons, as we will say,
Yeah.
rather than if you're caught off guarded. And because usually what happens, Trevor, is that we've come away from those discussions and consultations, and sometimes the best thoughts come after those discussions.
Yes.
You say to yourself, why didn't I say that in the discussion, or why did not contribute that thought?
Yes.
But that is just a reflection that if we had spent some time, a little bit more time,
Yeah.
being prepared, and because it's a challenge of growth as well. I mean, you can excuse ourselves if we are just getting into this whole concept of pausing and reflecting. But if you're a mature person,
Yes.
which have gone through some experience in our life that has taught us those lessons before, so that from the Christian perspective, we refer to it as prayer, seeking wisdom from God
Reflect
as
time.
Christians.
Yeah.
And when we do that, there's a sense of confidence, not in ourselves, but in God, who gives you that confidence and assurance that. But that's the divine perspective.
Yeah.
That He is with you and He is in you, and as we communicate with Him, as we come before His presence in prayer and anticipation that He's going to work on your behalf.
Yeah.
Because God has our best interests at heart. Sometimes we don't think that way. We think that sometimes God is against us, or God has thrown us in some whirlspin.
Yeah.
But what He does is always for our good. So it really has to do with the effort and the discipline. It really is a discipline to really take time to think. If we sense the urgency of doing things and filling the calendars and meeting the deadlines without proper thought and proper evaluation of what we're seeking to do, usually they tend to fall apart. Then you have to return from starting point again and resume the process. And this could avoid us a lot of hours or days and resources that otherwise could be invested. Yes,
I like the analogy you made to comparing reflection with prayer, because I think we've all have had the experience, or have had the experience where we've been told to take time for prayer and reflection, you know, and but I don't think we have majored on it, because a lot of Christians may feel that they don't have to think through things, and they don't have to think about things, or they may be afraid to say, if I spend time thinking on the word, reflecting on the word of God, it may lead me to dangerous grounds, right? It may lead me to ponder on things that I can't find the answers to, right? But God always has the answer, right?
Absolutely,
So
absolutely.
but I like the way how you put that. Reflection is also a valuable part of our time of prayer, and seeking, as you say, seeking answers, seeking with God. And I think that's something that is a takeaway for me personally, that just spending time quietly in reflection after maybe studying the word, or maybe hearing a good sermon, or a good program like this,
Yes, yes.
it
Or reading a good book,
helps. It helps.
reading a good book.
Yeah.
And so that's we challenge all of our viewers and listeners too. There are a lot of good books out there, and
Yeah.
we seem to be losing the art of reading.
So true. So
And
true.
we are caught up a lot with all the social media platforms
Mhm.
that can occupy so much of our time if we are not disciplined enough
Yeah.
to take up a good book and to read.
Mhm.
That one of the things that I think we are challenged with, Trevor, is stop and pause and think about just how many hours people may spend on the social media platforms.
Mhm.
You look at a typical 8-hour day, just say daylight time, but of course it goes into midnight sometimes, and just to check and see how it could attract so much attention, rather than really finding good resources to enrich your spirit, because um, what we need is an enrichment program for our own lives. How are we enriched? How do we satisfy that spiritual desire to know and to have an intimacy with God, an enrichment? So um, when you take time to pause, um, it allows you to investigate. Pausing is about finding meaning to each experience,
Mhm.
but not only to investigate, but there's another word that is used is called incubation.
Mhm.
And the illustration is like a crock pot as against a microwave.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know,
Mhm.
we sometimes stand up in front of the microwave and
Yeah.
wanted to hurry up.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
um, the microwave, the crock pot, on the other hand, takes its own good time,
Mhm.
and properly cooks what is put inside. So it's a period of incubation.
Mhm.
Um, so how do we assess and evaluate the learning that is given to us, whether we're in a college, whether in school program, whether advanced studies online, or wherever we are, when we access this knowledge and information, um, like teachers would say, put it in your own words,
Mhm.
translate this in your own language. And that takes time for reflection, and it becomes your own because you had time to think through it, rather than violating, as what we call, get involved in plagiarized work,
Mhm.
uh, because that's not your work. Yeah.
Yeah.
So incubation is so important in that sense.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. The discipline of it's a discipline, and I think if from my experience, if you look at students in school, those who take time to think are always better performers,
Mm-hmm.
right? Even in the workplace, right? Those who do not want to take the time to think will always find an excuse not to meet a deadline or to deliver or to participate in an activity that is being held. Those who think about it will come up with ideas, and then great ideas to make this thing better. And that rolls out even in the body of Christ. Those who think about how to make things better, how to better manage the program, the work of God, etc. They always bring value. So taking time to reflect then brings value to whatever you're involved in. And in turn now that makes you become a valuable part of the whole process and the whole program. You become now, as you say, invaluable. Right?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And then it allows you to have a sense of illumination, the process of placing value on your experiences and performance. So
Mhm.
it sheds light and what could be hidden in some ways from us. If there are difficult or technical issues that we're dealing with,
Mhm.
sometimes we would say, let's sleep on it.
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yeah.
We can't quite figure it out right now. And
Yeah.
when we use those analogies, it means that we're going to have time to think
Yeah.
about it and try to figure out what is the cause of this issue. So
Yeah.
there are some things we have to sleep on.
Yeah, you're correct. Even in my own life, from past experience, I do so I produce some of my best work at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yes,
When I
yes,
sleep and then I get up and I go and I sit down, the thoughts just flow.
yes, yes.
So
Okay,
you're
mind is
correct.
fresh. Yes,
Yeah.
your mind is fresh, and you're alert. As a matter of fact, some people tell us keep something that you record stuff near to your bedside.
Mm-hmm.
Some
Mm-hmm.
people keep a notepad. Some people now have all the gadgets that you could, so that when some ideas might come to you, that you have a place to make note of it. So by the time you are up and about, that you don't forget what came to mind.
Yeah, that spark of genius comes, and you can write it down immediately. For
Yes,
those, for if you're a pastor, so then you get your sermon, the title
yes,
and the outline of your sermon there. Right?
of course,
Yeah,
of course. So
yeah.
yeah, those are important thing, and that's the process of expanding your experiences into teachable moments as well. Like you
Mm.
just mentioned, that's where you can get your messages. That's where you could even illustration may come to mind that if you don't record it, you may lose it in the
Yeah,
morning.
yeah, yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah. Some new
yes,
invention.
yes.
Some new
Innovative,
product. Some new
yes,
product.
innovative idea.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some new product, a business
Yes,
idea, something
yes.
to meet a niche
Of
in
course,
the society, in the market. Yeah,
some creative ideas that would come,
yeah.
and then as a matter of fact, they tell us that some of the best leaders begin the day at 4 a.m.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
and they will probably take a break during the day. So it talks about the whole idea of illumination, incubation, um, and how we can become better persons because we take the pause.
Mm-hmm.
Do not let life be just rushing us by, as it were. Sometimes we would use illustration right here in this beautiful island of Grenada that they rush to get from one place to the other, and we think more so of the destination, but
Mm-hmm.
rather than the journey,
Mm-hmm.
and we forget to enjoy the journey around us. You take different routes to work.
Mm-hmm.
You find ways to enjoy the process, as it were, the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not only thinking of, boy, I need to get there at this particular moment. but you look at the hillsides, you view the oceans, because you basically, because of a small island like this, you're close by those places all the time. So how do we, and that helps us to slow us down a little bit and give us reason for gratitude as well.
Mm-hmm.
So reflect on a spirit of gratitude in our contemplations.
Right.
Wake up in the morning and you realize how blessed you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're
Mm-hmm.
grateful for a new day, grateful that you're well and alive, and there's clean air and there's good oxygen. We are in a peaceful country
Yeah.
as we contrasted to what's happening around the globe, and the crises, one nation to the other. And these values give us a sense to be grateful. It develops a spirit of gratitude in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
To look at the beautiful oceans around us and the mountains, the hillside, and to know that how God provides. When you look at the news, in so many of the countries that is stricken with poverty and famine, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
So we can develop a sense of, well, it's, and take it for granted, as it were.
Yeah. I call it complacency.
Yes.
We become complacent, laid
Yes.
back.
Right.
And yeah,
And
and not.
when we are grateful, yes, when we are grateful, it takes out the spirit of ingratitude.
Yeah.
When the more thankful we become, it lifts your spirit as well. It delivers you from the anxiety and the worry. Because somebody said that today is the day you worried about yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
um, and, and the day comes to a close, and much hasn't changed.
Yeah.
So sometimes we invest our energy into some useful worry and sense of anxiety, of course. So as we move along,
Yeah,
just to
just let me
say that,
let the viewers know that they can send in their comments or questions if they want something further clarified.
yes, of
WhatsApp
course,
us 403-1031, or you can type it in the comment section on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll respond to your questions, to your queries.
yes, thank you. So there's some personal awareness questions we want to explore with you. Explore these questions for a greater sense of your own awareness of who you are. So as you look at your own life and do an assessment of your own life, you want to ask yourself, what is my biggest asset? The natural tendency when we talk about assets, we think of things that we may own, properties, businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you measure the biggest asset?
Mm-hmm.
And what is that for you?
Mm-hmm.
It's much more than the things that we can acquire.
Uh-huh.
It has to do more so with who you are as a person.
Okay.
Your personhood, your sense
Mm-hmm.
of value,
Mm-hmm.
your sense of identity. Because people really understand themselves when they have this sense of worth for themselves, a sense of value, and of course, from a biblical Christian perspective, is that God who created you in His image and likeness has stamped His image upon your life, and that is the sense of that. And the other question to reflect upon: what is my biggest liability?
Mm-hmm.
In response to the discussion, business can become a liability, to many of us. There's a lot of books written on the barrenness of business
Yeah.
so that we can become occupied with activities
Mm-hmm.
and there is no sense of fulfillment or accomplishment
Yeah.
in the activities themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to make some hard decisions as we what is it that is beneficial, to me and to the people that I serve if I become involved in this activity.
Mm-hmm.
Because what you don't want to do is to have a life of busyness that does not produce result or fruitfulness.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so sometimes we make a tough choice. People ask us to serve on different organizations or
Mhm.
different boards and companies, and sometimes you might sense that's where you get your self fulfillment or sense of importance. Only to discover that you're running from meetings to meetings every day, and what that does, it just saturates you with a sense
Yeah.
of weariness
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
unfulfillment.
Yeah.
So you have to determine what
Mm.
is it that you want to spend your life doing, and rather than to answer every beck and call to
Yeah.
other people's agenda.
Right.
And so that's something that we learn as we grow,
Yeah.
as we evaluate our lives.
A question here, because you're right in that you could be involved in many things, but it results in very little value added to your life. Um, so yes, you like being a part of that, but
Mhm.
what added value doesn't bring to your life?
And what do you give to others?
Yeah, yeah,
Does it contribute value, add value
exactly.
to other people's life as
Yeah,
well? Yeah. So it's a tough question, but that's why it's really the law is that of reflection, and it causes us to stop and think, to pause. What is my highest height? Highest high rather. Um, your peak performance, your greatest fulfillment. Where do you get that from? Where does it come from? Um, what makes you fulfilled and left you give you a sense of joy and satisfaction that I am glad I invested my time and my resources in this particular effort,
yeah.
and it has brought you that sense of realization that it was worth the time and effort. What is my last law?
Mm-hmm,
Sometimes we make terrible decisions,
mm-hmm.
and then we have to try to go and correct those decisions. Sometimes, if we make those um, decisions that are not, wise, it takes a lot of effort to correct them,
Mm-hmm.
and that could bring us down to a point where we are discouraged, where we dissatisfied with ourselves, and then it really brings us back that if we take the time to reflect and evaluate, we may avoid um, making those choices. Um, what is my most worthwhile emotion?
um, that's an interesting question because you know, people like to hide their emotions. Men in
Hmm.
particular,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Men like to hide
Yes,
their emotions,
yes,
and to pull that response out of a man is quite different to a woman. But I sense that this is for a man to know himself. He has to be able to answer those questions.
yes,
You know,
yes.
otherwise you will live, as you correctly said, an unfulfilled life. I
Mhm.
think my wife and I were looking at midlife crisis. you know
Okay.
and, and I'm coming to realize if a man is able to answer those questions at an early age in his life, he can spare himself a lot of problems and heartache in that midlife crisis there, because everyone comes to a point in life where they ask they're supposed to ask themselves these questions,
Mhm.
you know, and you don't want to wait until you retire, you know, or come into a retirement to ask yourself these questions, right?
No.
You should be full.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are worthwhile and invaluable questions, as it were,
Yeah.
because is their sense of joy, is one of our emotions in what you do. Do you um, have that emotion of joy and satisfaction, as it were?
Mm.
Yes. What is my least worthwhile emotion?
Mm.
Um, Sometimes, we blow the top, we get angry, we lose it, as we would say.
Mhm.
We don't want to encourage those emotions. Um,
Mhm.
so, how do we handle
Those
those
things.
emotions that tend to get the better of us?
Yeah. What's the trigger? What's the trigger? What's the
What's
trigger
the
for that?
trigger?
Because you're
Yes.
correct. When you have those least worthwhile emotions, they leave you very disappointed, unfulfilled, feeling worthless, miserable, etc. So I think asking yourself these questions helps you to avoid putting yourself through those painful periods in life.
Yes.
When you finish with these questions, I have an important question to ask you, because I
Okay.
had some thoughts on those things.
All right. Absolutely. We have a saying that, I'll give you peace of my mind.
Hmm.
in,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
in a way that suggests, I'm going to tell you off, or, which is not usually positive,
Hmm.
but you don't want to give everybody peace of your mind. You probably have none left.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So be careful with your words and language.
Hmm.
What is my worst habit?
Hmm.
Um, how do you manage yourself? Because it's really managing yourself that enables you to manage the rest of your life. I mean, the rest of the things that you do, rather. Um, we would talk about time management, but really it is self management. If you're not managing yourself, time is a constant. We never can
Hmm.
make it less or more. It
Hmm.
is constant. But how we manage ourselves to use the time wisely. Yes. What is most fulfilling to me?
Hmm. Hmm.
What
Hmm.
brings you the greatest fulfillment in your life?
Hmm.
Um, yes. So that helps you to think about that. What is my most prized possession? What do you value most? Um, and of course, that cannot be or should not be your material wealth or
Hmm.
things that we like to acquire. It has to do with what do you value in your own life. To experience growth in a specific area of your life, ask specific questions to that area of your life. So then we have to personalize it in terms of the kind of questions we need to ask ourselves to enable us to grow. You
Hmm.
know, we have if we are constantly doing certain things and um, not getting the desired results, it has to be an issue that we're not we're not asking the right questions.
Hmm.
And so um, sometimes that's where we need some support, additional support, or help and advice and coaching, as we would say. Sometimes we may not have the skill, ability to be able to ask the right questions, even.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we have embarked on as Trevor, is to provide personalized coaching
Yeah.
for individuals who may have a need for that.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that's available through our ministry, through the John Maxwell program
Hmm.
that we do as a certified coach and trainer. Um, we recommend that if you feel stuck There's some writing. There's a particular book that you may find useful called Stuck. It's reflecting on people stuck in halftime,
Mm.
basically people at midlife, as it were, and
Mm.
you don't even have to be there, but stuck in your life generally.
Yeah,
And
in a career that's going
yes,
nowhere,
hmm
on like you're on a treadmill and you can't get off.
and
Which
it's not.
brings me to it
Yeah.
brings me to the questions I want to ask you, which is
Okay, sure.
the role of honesty and integrity,
Yes,
of
yes.
personal honesty in responding to those questions. Here, what is your biggest? What is
hmm
what is the fact, the
hmm
reality? Um,
Yes.
there are a lot of people who lie to themselves.
Right. Yes.
You know,
Yes.
how do you quote? How do you bring someone who is in that state out of that? Because some people they don't want to face the reality. They don't want. They are
Yes.
fearful. Maybe they don't like criticism. Maybe they don't think too highly of themselves, etc. Or they think too highly of themselves. Maybe they have low self-esteem or too high self-esteem. They have big ego.
Right.
How do you manage someone who is in that in that state? Because
hmm
then it's a very difficult to complete that whole personal reflection that is
Yes. And that's why we recommend that in our lives we need to have at least one accountability part person, somebody that is willing to tell you the truth,
mm-hmm.
yes, and that you're willing to accept the truth from that person.
Mm-hmm.
Because, as you mentioned, we may have false concepts of who we really are and how we really think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you may have misconceptions about really what is my biggest asset. And the other person's perspective
Mm-hmm.
can help you to clarify that. Yes.
You're correct. Sometimes it's painful, but you gotta tell them the truth.
You have to tell them the truth and the
Yeah,
willingness of the person to accept the truth.
yeah.
Because it is a leading questions. Um, for example, Trevor, um, what is the priority of a person's life is determined on how they spend the days.
Mm,
Um, if if your calendar is occupied with things that is not bringing meaning and significance to your life, then you need to change some of those time slots in your calendar,
mm, mm, mm.
because your calendar is a reflection of how you want to spend your day.
Right.
And I mean, there are some things because of a job or a position that you may need to fulfill those roles. But with the outside of that, you determine how you want to spend your evenings, for example, or
Mm,
your day off or weekends. And nobody really, holds a gun to your head and says, Trevor, you must do this on Saturday or some other event. But
mm,
um, and that's why it is so necessary to keep a calendar, keep a diary, a journal, as we would say. So journaling is going to be important, because when you look back at, if you take the time to journal for a week, I mean just a short term journaling, Sunday to Saturday, and you begin this exercise and you begin to journal, how did I really spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and so on. And then you come to the end of the week and you realize, because the question we tend to ask, where has the time gone? The time really
mm,
hasn't gone anywhere. But it's how have we spent the time? How have we executed um, the time that we had?
mhm.
And that's just a starting point, so that you could at least do it for 1 week. And
Right.
it doesn't have to be any special journal. You find a notebook,
Mm,
um, some leaves, some pages, and today's date, tomorrow's date, and you begin to pencil in. Of course, you have all the gadgets now on your phones, on your iPads, and whatever else that you use. And so you could keep a record. So when you look at the end of the week, um, how did you spend that week? Because if that week multiplies itself into weeks and then continues into months and realize like at the end of the year, because it will tell you that's how you spent your time.
Right.
You may think different. You may think that's not how I spent my time.
Yeah. Yeah. You.
Yes.
I remember my brother shared a story with me with one of his friends that you know, the guy, he kept all of his paychecks where he worked during the
Right. Yeah.
during the year. And at the end of the year, he went and he looked at his paychecks and he totaled up all the money he made. You know, this guy was working in construction.
Yeah.
And when he looked at his savings, he almost had a mental breakdown. You know, because he realized how he squandered and wasted all that thousands of money, dollars,
Yes.
during the year, and he couldn't see what he did with it. And
Yes.
and I think that was a shocking case of reflection. But I think it brought him to reality and brought some
Yes.
change in the way how he conducted his life. You know, but somebody
Yes.
would say, I need this money, I need this job. I hate this job, but it pays the bill, and I can't. This job is destroying my life. I don't like it. I detest it, etc. But I can't get out of it. You made a couple of points about, you work 8 hours, or let's say 8, 9, or 10 hours for the day you give your employer. Even 12. You have another 12 hours. You could go do some studies or something.
Of course, personal development
in a different direction. Yeah,
yes,
to get out of rut that you're in.
Yes, and then, like you mentioned, the example now that you don't realize how the money was spent. It was, and even in that issue, it's a whole different discussion about how we spend the resources that God gives to us.
Oh,
because if there's no account for it at all, you find that it's gone and it's done, and we can't account for where it went.
Yeah.
In the same way as we wrap up our time together, if there's not a serious reflection, and there are a couple of things that we will close up with. Overcome growing pains, and because growth is painful.
Yes.
But you work through the effort. So the recommendation: make it a top priority to find a place and time for personal reflection and question asking. Ask yourself some hard questions. Schedule time. Don't hope you find the time. Schedule time to pause and reflect. Take time as you look at your own life. Yes. So it's a discipline that perhaps we need to start today. Perhaps we have not developed the discipline to pause, and so that's just a challenge to every one of us. The more we pause, the more useful and fruitful our life can become. Yeah.
My final question is that it's imperative that we put personal development high on the agenda.
Yeah.
Right? Make it. We have to not. I don't want to say. We have to make it a priority, right? And we should not allow ourselves to be controlled by events. I saw that during COVID and with the coming on of Zoom and all of that. Sometimes you get an invitation you get 20 invitations for different activities in a day, and you wonder how to split yourself between all of these invitation
Yes.
to this meeting and that meeting, etc. Because the perception is that you have an abundance of time on your hand, and so anybody could just schedule a meeting and invite you because everybody's home doing nothing, which is a big lie. People were
Yes.
very
Yeah.
involved. Some people were working from home, etc. So you're not wasting time. And working from home is sometimes could be more tedious than
Mhm.
having to go to an office. So I think we have been through a period of reflection for a lot of people over the last, I would say, year or two, and people have come out of that. What do you recommend now, as you say, in terms of going forward? That yes,
Mhm.
find a place, a quiet
Mhm.
place,
Mhm.
maybe in half an hour when you come from work. You take that time to just sit down and ask yourself those questions again,
Mhm.
right? Schedule the time. You're correct, and then
Yes.
as you say, growth is painful, right? But the
Mhm.
rewards are great.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Yes. It's worth the trouble, as we would say,
Mm-hmm.
is worth the trouble to pause, to examine, self-examination of where your true value lies, because what you value is what you will spend time on.
Mm-hmm.
Your values is reflected in your work
Mm-hmm.
and what you commit yourself to.
Okay.
And so sometimes we need to evaluate um, what we hold to be priorities and strong values and virtues
Mm-hmm.
in our own lives, um, and then take the effort, make the effort, take the time
Mm-hmm.
to pull away from the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and to drown out the noise, because there's so many voices that seeking our attention today, and so drown out the noise, the volume of noise that bombards us all over. Some you're getting invited to be on every Zoom call. You don't do that. uh, you choose, yes, because nobody really can make those decisions for you. That um, great invitations, they're good, all good things in most cases to participate in, but you gently refuse that. I need to guard this time, guard time, particular with your family,
Mm-hmm.
so that when people ask you to come on a Zoom at a particular time that you're meeting with family, then you could say you have another appointment, a more important appointment.
Mm-hmm.
And we all need to do that and learn that, in our reflection of our own lives, because this helps us to be a better person, to be um, a sense of self satisfaction in that way, that fulfillment, self fulfillment, and you're able to help others
Mm-hmm.
when you yourself have experienced this growth in your own life.
Right.
You can help others in their struggles,
Mm-hmm.
and they have difficulty understanding these questions, and helping to coach them through them, help them to guide them so that they become a better person in their own lives as well.
Okay.
Mhm.
Great. Great. So uh, an hour has passed already. The conversation is just heating up,
Yes.
and it's such a joy to be able to share this knowledge with the public,
Yes,
so that we could
absolutely.
actually really see transformation taking place in lives
Mhm.
and being impacted in positive, in the
Yes.
family, in the home, on the job,
Mhm.
and of course in society. So, Rev, we want
Yes.
to thank you very much for the time you take to share with us on Leadership Plus. We're going to be
Yes.
back next Wednesday again for another time, and we want to ask you to please stay tuned and tell someone about it, that they too could be empowered through the impartation of this knowledge. We also want to let you know that there are quite a few programs we have on our website. Just go and look for Leadership Plus on the Hope FM Grenada, and you can go back and listen to some of those programs which deal with a whole suite of topics and issues that will be a blessing to you, and will help you to be a better man or woman, boy or girl, a better Christian. For that will serve the whole of the kingdom of God. Amen.
Man.
Amen.
Thank you very much. God bless you. Have a good evening.
Okay, you too, Rev. And thank you, listeners, for joining.
Hope 103.1 FM.
Healthy body and a healthy mind. Follow these steps and you'll be fine. Drink lots of water, keep the